Great to have Ian Castleberry playing with us for our NFL Gold Nuggets feature. And thanks to David Kreisman and the staff at DC Kreisman Jewelers for bringing us in each and every Thursday to play with us and talk NFL. Ian Castleberry, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing excellent. First things first, Michael, an AFC East story right here that may impact the Bills. This is interesting, Ian. So wide receiver, Patriots receiver, N'Keal Harry demanding a trade from the Patriots. He was a first-round draft pick, just 3 seasons ago? What's gone wrong, Ian? Why does he want out of Foxborough?
N'Keal Harry wants out because he thinks he's not getting the ball enough, or he's not a big enough part of the Patriots offense. He thinks he should be a featured receiver there. But his stats have not reflected getting him the ball more. Last year he had 33 catches, 309 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. You have probably heard or read over the years many receivers and reporters have talked about how it's difficult for a first-time or a young receiver to get acclimated to the Patriots system. Multiple tree routes and things like that. And Tom Brady also in past years been very demanding on his receivers. If they didn't run a route precise way, Brady was very quick to not throw them the ball. But Harry just hasn't had the production that justifies what he wants. As you said, he was a first-round pick in 2019. But the past couple of years, the Patriots have really needed a featured receiver, and he has not been able to perform to that capability. And right now, as it looks going into training camp, he's probably number 4, maybe even number 5 on New England's depth chart. So he wants out.
And Mike, it kind of reminds me of, someone who's selling their home and they think it's worth more than the agent says the market will bear. This is kind of the case with N'Keal Harry. It's like, hey, I'm better than, the stats are showing. And the reality is like, no, you're not right now.
Well, this is the danger before, people, and this is wishful thinking, partly on my part being a Bills fan, but this was what makes what the Patriots did a little bit look like desperation, them signing all these free agents, kind of going against the Patriot way. And, maybe not doing as much homework as they should have. Just, this looks good, we'll just plug them in. And now you've got one person who never played it down for the Patriots that already wants out. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. I mean, if anything can do it, Belichick can, but it just shows you sometimes the danger of trying to rebuild on the fly.
Yeah, and Ian, it makes me wonder if maybe N'Keal Harry's like, I'm not ready to catch anything from Cam Newton or even Mac Jones. So maybe he, too, is like, maybe this isn't working for both sides. Are there any possible trade options out there for N'Keal Harry?
Yeah, I think plenty of teams would be willing to take a chance on N'Keal Harry. He had an outstanding college career at Arizona State. His junior year, 73 catches, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. He caught 2,800, nearly 2,900 yards and 22 touchdowns in 3 seasons with the Sun Devils. But you do wonder if the fact that Tom Brady's no longer there to guide, to influence receivers in the locker room, a guy like Harry suddenly feels like he can challenge Bill Belichick a little bit with his role, and that might not help him with other teams. There are plenty of teams that would be willing to take a chance on his talent, and I don't think they would have to give up very much to get N'Keal Harry. I've seen maybe a 5th-round pick and then maybe another pick thrown in depending on how he performs. But there might be some coaches who think, well, if he can't hack it with Belichick, how is he going to do with us?
Yeah, that's a really good point to make, and we'll see where this goes. I mean, and even if it's not even Belichick, but if you've got a wide receiver that's saying, "Hey, I want more playing time," and maybe you're not worthy of it yet, that's going to steer teams, I think, away from him to boot. So we'll follow this and see if there's a trade partner out there for Harry and the Patriots. Hey, Trevor Lawrence, Ian, signs his rookie deal with the Jaguars. All right. So, Ian, what is the top dollar for the number 1 overall pick these days?
Well, Trevor Lawrence signed a rookie deal that's basically slotted in, and listeners have probably seen, an increased priority on teams trying to win a Super Bowl or with a rookie quarterback, trying to get that build around him while his salary is pretty low. So Trevor Lawrence, he signed a 4-year, $36.8 million deal. $24 million of that will be a signing bonus. So $9 million average or $9.2 million average, that's obviously a whole lot of money. But if you compare what Lawrence makes to, say, the veteran top-paid quarterbacks, it's really just a fraction. I mean, if Lawrence makes $9 million, the top quarterback salary this coming season will be Patrick Mahomes making $45 million. Dak Prescott's going to make $40 million. Aaron Rodgers, $33.5 million. Russell Wilson, $35. So this is a bargain, if you can call it that, in the NFL salary scale.
Yeah, so it's $36 million. So $24 million right off the bat is that guaranteed money. That's, or rather, the signing bonus. So basically, are we talking over 5 years, Ian? So he's looking at what, basically $2.5 million a year after they take away the signing bonus.
Yeah, essentially, and they can space that signing bonus out. That's one advantage of giving so much money up front as a signing bonus, is that the Jaguars can space that money out for multiple years, even beyond the terms of his contract, to create room under the salary cap.
Gotcha on that. Great to catch up always with Ian Castleberry. Ian writes for thecomeback.com, also awfulannouncing.com, two very well-run national sports and pop culture websites. And, of course, always appreciate Ian making his two radio hits every week with us here with the Wise Guys. And Ian, of course, presented today by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers. Guys, speaking of the Jags, all right, Ian, they were one of the few teams fined for violating OTA rules. Urban himself was fined by the league along with the Jaguars themselves. After the controversial hire of his strength coach, he resigned quickly. And taking on Tim Tebow, which reportedly was not making some players happy. There are already questions as to whether Meyer is a fit for NFL coaching. And Ian, are these grumblings, or is there something to that concern?
I think this is mostly grumblings. I mean, other teams, the 49ers and the Cowboys, were also fined for violating OTA rules. Not as much as the Jaguars. As you said, a total of $300,000. The Jaguars fined $200,000. Urban Meyer fined $100,000. I think Meyer definitely deserves criticism for trying to hire that strength coach that you mentioned. I mean, that was a guy who had been shown and reported to be verbally abusive and physically abusive to his players. And I think Meyer thought he could sneak that one in since it was in the NFL and not college. This, I think, might be a little bit overblown. I mean, the Jaguars definitely violated OTA rules on COVID protocols. So what happened was they violated a non-contact rule. Basically, there was more contact being allowed in practice between the receivers and defensive backs than the rules are supposed to allow. So is that a situation where Meyer kind of looked the other way because, he's a new coach, he's trying to implement a culture, and if guys are being physical and going at it, he doesn't necessarily want to discourage it. This wasn't something that you would say the Jaguars were cheating or gaining an advantage, but they were maybe just kind of looking the other way and sidestepping some rules for safety purposes, health purposes that were in place during OTAs.
What do you make of this, Mike? Is this much to do about nothing or something more, in your opinion?
I think it's much to do about nothing. I think they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of new players coming into this, and I'm sure it's easy to lose track of things. And so, no, I think it's much to do about nothing. But it's something that players don't want to be overworked at this time in this day and age. You can't be Vince Lombardi. As great as Vince Lombardi was, Vince, the attitude he had wouldn't work today. It just wouldn't. There's a great story about him with Jim Ringo went to renegotiate his salary, and he brought an agent in and said, "You've been traded." And isn't that a great story? That couldn't happen today. It's a great story for 1960, but that ain't happening in 2021.
Yeah. Jim Ringo shows up, said, "Coach, this is my agent. He's to negotiate my contract for me." And Lombardi's like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'll be back in 5 minutes." Comes back in, doesn't even look at Ringo, looks at the agent and says, "You're talking to the wrong team. Jim Ringo's just been traded to Philadelphia." And you're right. It doesn't work that way. No, nor should it. I mean, you're right. It's a funny story. We laugh at it.
But in a lot of ways, it's not.
In retrospect.
It just shows how the power. And Jim Ringo was a very loyal Packer.
And he was an all-pro center.
That's right. And
It's a different world, as it should be. I mean, it's
absolutely.
It's called evolving and growing. But, those were fun stories for back in the day. Ian Castleberry plays with the Wise Guys on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, and DC bringing us our NFL Gold Nuggets feature with Ian. All right, Tampa Bay rookie quarterback Cameron Kinley got some good news recently, Ian, from the Department of Defense. Tell us more.
Yeah, Cameron Kinley, a draft pick, as you said, a rookie for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, out of the Naval Academy. And normally a player would have to serve in the Navy, his commission, before playing in the NFL. But in recent years, players have been allowed to defer that. But for one reason or another, Kinley was told he could not delay his naval service before going to play in the NFL. So the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, stepped in and said, okay, you can serve your naval commitment after your playing career is done. And that's consistent with what has been done in recent years with other players from the Navy. Keenan Reynolds for the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Cardona for the New England Patriots, their long snapper. He serves as a reservist, during the off season and even during off days. He was doing like 24-hour shifts as a reservist during his off day to fulfill his commitment. So for whatever reason, at first, Cameron Kinley was not allowed the same obligation that Reynolds and Cardona were, but Lloyd Austin stepped in and said, no, you can play. You can serve the Navy after your playing career is done.
Wow. I'd like to see more of this from our armed forces if a player has an opportunity to do that. They always say, well, he didn't get his degree. College will always be there. And it's kind of like the Naval Academy. The Navy will always be there as well. So I'm glad the Secretary of Defense made this call. And hopefully if a player from one of the West Point, Army or Navy, Air Force, if there's someone if they got a player that's good enough to play in the NFL, what a better way to promote the military than having that player. So hopefully that's a bit of a sea change as well. Pardon me using a little Navy term there.
Very good.
Thank you there, Michael. Ian Castleberry plays with the Wise Guys. All right, the Mike Gore Bills takeover question, Ian. It looks like wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie is cooking up an off-the-field venture.
Yeah, usually when you hear that players are investing in a restaurant, you can have agents and financial advisors practically ready to put their head through a wall because their client is about to light a bunch of money on fire, usually giving a bunch of money to a friend for an investment in a restaurant that, typically those ventures fail. But McKenzie has done this the right way. He lives in Miami. He loves barbecue, and he couldn't find a place to eat good barbecue in Miami. So he thought, all right, we need to open a barbecue restaurant here. But he didn't just give money to a friend to open it up. He sought out a renowned barbecue pitmaster, Mel Rodriguez, from Austin, Texas. That gives them some bona fides right there, right?
Yeah.
Barbecue from Austin, Texas. And they started out doing pop-up restaurants during the pandemic. Now they have a brick-and-mortar situation. But if you're Isaiah McKenzie, sounds, Mike, like he's done this really the smart way rather than just lighting a bunch of money on fire to help a friend.
Yeah, I've been reading about this, and yes, and how nice to see, because the landscape is filled with NFL players, especially NFL players that give their money to something, open a restaurant.
Vultures just standing by.
Right, exactly. So it's nice to see that. Hope it continues to work out well. And my guess is there's some good chicken wings down at that barbecue place as well.
Let me ask you, Michael, Buffalo guy, what's chicken wing? Of course, chicken wings. It's the king up there. What about barbecue in Buffalo?
Not quite.
Yeah.
Not when you talk about having a barbecue, it's that old northern thing. When you talk about having a barbecue, it's hamburgers and hot dogs and steaks.
Gotcha. Now, so this was a smart move in the sense of a business move, is that he's not opening this up in Buffalo.
Probably not.
Okay, just checking on that.
How cool. If he keeps having the great years he have, he can move that barbecue up their place and
just expand
and Buffalo can get some barbecue there.
Mike, is Isaiah McKenzie going to jump Cole Beasley on the wide receiver depth chart for that spot?
It's quite possible. A lot of people thinking that, especially with Cole's little the vaccine controversy, and he does a lot of things for Buffalo. He made a lot of big catches for them. Had that great end of the season game against the Dolphins, and Beasley, bless his heart, has been hurt a few times too. But there's certainly some possibilities with that.
Wow. Don't want to catch COVID, but, you can catch the football. So good luck to old Cole Beasley there as Ian Castleberry plays with the wise guys. All right, Ian, this is interesting. I don't want to make this out to be the dating game or Match.com, but it's going to turn out that way. So, Ian, why were the CFL and the XFL looking to hook up, and why is that not happening? It's like they're taking a break. It's not me, it's you.
Yeah, this is a weird partnership that eventually fell through, but the XFL and the CFL were talking about a merger. Presumably, the CFL could penetrate the U.S. market and get onto American television networks. There would be more opportunities for XFL players to play throughout the league. But the XFL playing in the spring, the CFL playing in the summer and fall, I guess there was a place somewhere in the middle there where the two leagues could have merged. But there just logistically, it seemed like there were some problems. For one thing, literally the CFL plays by different rules. They have a bigger field. They have 3 downs instead of 4, et cetera. But I think it could have been an opportunity for all the players involved to have opportunities to play elsewhere. But unfortunately, if you were somebody who was really looking forward to the St. Louis Battlehawks playing the Hamilton Tiger Cats, it sounds like that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Wow, what a disappointment. And Mike, this was just a really weird scenario for me to look at because, and as Ian said, well, the CFL is looking to break into the American market. Well, how long has the CFL been around for? This is like the first opportunity, and they're going, you know what, I think we can piggyback the XFL on this. I mean, the XFL has been a abject failure, not once, but twice. All these spring leagues that they try and push on us and say, hey, you can't get enough football. Yeah, we can. I mean, honestly, again, I've always said, and I don't mean to disparage the players who were there. They're incredible athletes. They're talented. But again, it's like watching AAA baseball. I don't want to watch AAA football. I want the real deal. And yet, the XFL continues to try and make that comeback. I just don't understand why the CFL is at this point thinking they can break in to the American football market.
Only thing I can think of is the CFL's losing a lot of money, and this is a chance for them. I know one of the things that the CFL always worries about, that the NFL will put a team in Toronto or Montreal, and that'll be the end of the CFL.
Yeah.
So they really worry about that. So it's just a chance. But as Ian put out, it's a much different game. It's a really interesting game with the 3 downs and they don't call illegal procedure very often. You can just jump around stuff and everything. And I know people grew up in Buffalo like I did. There are people that really that liked it more than the NFL back when I was growing up, just because of the wide openness of it, the wide field and everything. But it doesn't compare to the American game in any way, shape, or form. But anyway, I think it's just something for us to talk about more than anything else.
Well, we're certainly doing it. Ian, before we let you go, are these two lovebirds, do you think they'll hook up again and maybe go the distance?
I don't think so. The CFL is going forward with a season this year, and the XFL now, they're not going to play reportedly until 2023. So I think maybe the XFL was hoping they could, get into action a little sooner by merging with the CFL. But I don't, other than the TV market and playing in some American cities, I really don't see the upside here for the CFL.
With you on that, for sure, man. There's just no upside, period, man, for either side. Hey, man, Ian, appreciate you, friend. Have a great weekend.
All right, take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You too, buddy. Great work as always. That's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys, presented by David Creasman and DC Creasman Jewelers.